For the nth time, hello there, viewers. I am Marjorie Muralda ENCARGUEZ, and for today's video, I will be collaborating with my dearest classmates to explain to you guys the theory of translation analysis according to Vinay and Dalbernet. Warning, make sure to watch Miss Mariscal and Miss Mataak's video lecture before you listen to what I have to impart. If you've already watched their videos, then you probably have an idea about the general context. You've been introduced to the overview of translation, its theories and how it's being analyzed, and how it was analyzed. You guys also already have some knowledge about Vinay and Dalbernet's concepts. So far, you've been introduced to the new translation category, the direct translation, the calc, and literal translation. Given that this is a collaborative video lecture, I will be the one to continue the following concepts. These topics are oblique translation, transposition, modulation, equivalence, adaptation, and the application theory. So without further ado, let's begin with oblique translation. When we say oblique translation, what does that mean? Well, according to the Oxford Dictionary, under the grammar category, oblique refers to denoting any case other than the nominative or vocative. For example, the speech she gave on my cousin's wedding had an oblique statement. Oblique translation techniques transform the structural and conceptual elements so it doesn't miss the nuances of the original text. It is used when the structural or conceptual elements of the source language cannot be directly translated without altering the meaning or upsetting the grammatical and stylistic elements of the target language. According to Vinay and Dalbernet, oblique translation has four techniques: the transposition, modulation, equivalence, and adaptation. So let's start with the transposition. This is the process where parts of speech change their sequence when they are translated. It is a sense of shift of word class. Grammatical structures are often different in different languages. Transposition is often used between English and Spanish because of the preferred position of the verb in the sentence. Excuse me. English often has the verb near the beginning of a sentence. Spanish can have it closer to the end, and this requires that the translator knows that it is possible to replace a word category in the target language without altering the meaning of the source text. This strategy can also be found within a language. For example, I give him a kiss is semantically no difference from I kiss him, though the word kiss is changed from a noun into a verb. Well, according to Vinay and Dalbernet, the first expression can be called the base expression, while the converted form of the word kiss as a verb is called the transposed expression. As a result of the divergence of language systems between SL and TT, this strategy to altering words without semantic change is undertaken probably most common and even sometimes necessarily by translators. To make this discussion more comprehensible, here are some examples. First example, in a prepositional phrase, we have I bought this on Shopee. If we were to translate it in a transpositional manner, it will go like, I saw it on Shopee and then I bought it. The second example, in a noun to adjective manner, we have the operation was a success for noun, and when it is translated, it becomes the operation was successful, which is now considered as an adjectival replacement. Next topic is modulation. Next, According to Vinay and Dalbernet in 2004, modulation refers to a variation of the form of the message obtained by a change in the point of view. If the transpositional translation changes the word class, modulation can change the entire phrase itself but retains the meaning of the context. For example, we all are familiar with the expression only heaven knows. There's even a popular song about it. So anyway, when this phrase is to be translated in a modulating manner, it'll go like, no one actually knows. Notice how the shift of point of view becomes completely different. From using heaven as a noun, it changes into no one, which is a generalized term for everybody. Another example is, the girl he replaced you with looks so ugly compared to you. Turns into, you are way too beautiful than this new girl. Once again, notice how most of the lexicons used in this first phrase was changed, but the main idea remained. According to Vinay and Dalbernet, Chinese is a very flexible language in pragmatics, and there are always several different expressions for the same idea. For example, Ta Fei Chang Yonggan, he is very brave, and Ta Xiao Budangge, he is not a coward at all. However, not all the word in the Chinese word ji, thus modulating, is ineffective for ambiguity when translating. I borrowed him a book and he lent me a book in Chinese. Next is the equivalence. Here you have to express something in a completely different way. For example, when translating idioms or advertising slogans, the process is creative but not always easy. According to Vinay and Dalbernet, it refers to a strategy to describe the same situation by using completely different stylistic or structural methods for producing equivalent texts. Spend money like water. Hujin rutu. Spend money like earth. They are different as chalk and cheese. Tamen yuji tiangrang jibi. They are as different as sky and earth. He was like a cat on hot bricks before the exam. Kao shi shan tajiste shang regu shang de mai. Before the exam, he was like an ant on a hot pot. In the words of Armstrong 2005, equivalence is not only useful but also necessary in translating idioms and proverbs. This strategy is viewed as a type of modulating of a linguistic subdiscipline of pragmatics, which is concerned with the use of language in different cultures. The change in stylistic is another kind of application to equivalence. Language used in one style often has a contrary means against what seems to be its literal meaning. The basic function of the sentence, "Would you mind closing the window?" is a request for information. However, this general question in stylistic will be translated in Chinese as an imperative sentence. Qing ba shuangzi guanshang. Close the window, please. Last is the adaptation. Adaptation occurs when something specific to one language culture is expressed in a totally different way that is familiar or appropriate to another language culture. It is a shift in cultural environment. Excuse me. Should pincho, a Spanish restaurant menu dish, be translated as kebab in English? It involves changing the cultural reference when a situation in source culture does not exist in the target culture. For example, France has Belgian jokes and England has Irish jokes. In the concepts of Vinay and Dalbernet, adaptation refers to a method used in those cases where the type of situation being referred to by SL message is known in the TL culture. Example, lovely weather, isn't it? Chifan lema, have you finished your meal? Rather than the operations on linguistic level, this strategy focus on the phenomena or practices that are absent in in that target culture. In a literal translation, Chinese people will be surprised why people always talk about the weather, like a meteorologist, when they meet each other, while the English people will have the doubt whether the speaker has an intention to invite me for dinner. Although these expression patterns are irrelevant and strange to people from other cultures. Both sentences in the example above can be translated as, how do you do? And by adopting this method, an equivalence of the same value is created in both ST and TT. Now we have the application theory. There are 5 steps given by Vinay and Dalbernet for moving from ST to TT. First is to identify the units of translation. Second is to examine the XL text, evaluating the descriptive and affective and intellectual contents of the units. Third is reconstruct the metalinguistic context of the message. Fourth is to evaluate the stylistic effects. And fifth is to produce and revise the TT. The unit of translation is the unit of thought as well as the lexicological unit. But also, Vinay and Dalbernet defined it as the smallest segment of utterance whose signs are linked in such a way that they should not be translated individually. Some problems can be found in practical translation with this model. Firstly, the boundaries between units may be multiple, and there are several ways to divide the units into small or longer segments of thought. Thus, in this occasion, the units between the TT and the ST fail to be equivalent. Secondly, the aim of Vinay and Dalbernet's strategies is to describe the process of translation. However, their model in fact focuses on the translation product due to the basic and crucial step for identifying units, which are based on the taxonomy of linguistic approaches. Lastly, shifts themselves are on the micro-level translation. There is an uncertainty concerns how to deal with the register of the text. And once again, we have reached the end of my main topic discussion. For the summary of this discussion, as we can see above, even though there are many translation techniques that seem to require too much thinking to choose from while translating, expert translators don't actually spend too much time thinking about the best suited method during the process. It depends on the translator's experience that has been built over the years, reflected in his intuitive choice and use of translation methods. It's a process that takes place and runs automatically without the intervention of any intricacies. The ability to choose the appropriate translation method at the right time during the translation process is what makes the difference between a skilled expert translator and a novice. Translation study is a new developing academic subject, and due to its complexity and variety, a universal theory was difficult to be found in the past 50 years. The complexity of realization of pragmatics even determines that the translation theories can only be evaluated as ever-perfected standards. Torrey in 1995 warns against the totally negative kind of reasoning required by the search for the shifts, and without the consideration of higher level discourse or the effect that changes might have on the reader. Vinay and Dalbernet's model is mainly proposed for describing the changes that occur in a specific STTT pair, which highlight the liability to make error, failure, and loss in translation. However, Vinay and Dalbernet's classic taxonomy remains the most comprehensive categorization of differences between pairs of languages. And it still has profound influences on a wide range of new developing translation theories. That is all for our video lecture. I hope you guys learned something. And ang Pinkanunay. Bye-bye!